The twin suns hung low above the horizon, painting the alien sky in shades of deep orange and violet. The air shimmered with dry heat, and the wind carried the faint hum of distant engines, relics of a war that had ended long ago. Eli Walker trudged along the dusty road, his boots worn and cracked from months of scavenging. He had come to this world, Kirill, as part of a failed human trade mission. Now, the others had left, and he was alone, just a human wanderer on a planet that didn't trust outsiders. He carried a small bag over his shoulder, filled with scraps of metal and dried food. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. The people here, the Corellians, kept their distance. They were tall, graceful beings with luminous skin and bright, shifting eyes, beautiful but cold. Eli had learned to avoid trouble. But on this evening, something caught his attention. Down the road, in the fading light, he saw a small figure struggling to walk. Her steps were slow, uneven, and each one left a faint mark on the dusty path. As he got closer, he realized she was barefoot. Her feet were raw and cut from sharp stones. Her clothes were torn, once elegant but now dirty and frayed. Her silver hair shimmered in the dying light, and her green eyes, glowing faintly, were filled with exhaustion. Eli slowed down, unsure if he should approach. Corellians didn't like humans interfering, but something about the girl made him stop. She looked too young, too fragile to be out here alone. "Hey," he said softly, careful not to startle her. "You okay?" The girl flinched and looked up. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, in a quiet, trembling voice, she replied, "I fell behind." "Behind?" Eli frowned. "You're far from the city. You got family out here." She shook her head, clutching a small metallic pendant around her neck. "No, I can't go back." Her voice cracked, and Eli noticed her hands were trembling. There was fear in her eyes, not of him, but of something else. He looked down at her feet again. They were bleeding. The soles were raw, and she could barely stand. He sighed, then crouched down, setting his bag aside. "Sit," he said gently. "You'll hurt yourself worse." The girl hesitated, then obeyed. She sat on a nearby rock, wincing as she pulled her feet closer. Eli untied his boots and slipped them off. The cool evening air hit his skin. He'd worn those boots for almost 2 years, patched them, cleaned them, walked 1,000 miles in them. But now he didn't think twice. He pushed them toward her. "Here, take these." The girl blinked, confused. "Your shoes?" "Yeah," he said with a small smile. "You need them more than I do." Her eyes widened, glowing brighter for a moment. "You would give them to me? A stranger?" "Why not?" Eli shrugged. "You look like you need a break." For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she reached out and touched the boots. Her fingers trembled as she lifted them. When she slipped them on, they looked far too big. But she smiled anyway. It was a small, fragile smile, the kind you only give when you haven't smiled in a long time. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't know what this means." Eli chuckled. "They're just boots." But she shook her head. "Not to me." She looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read, something between sorrow and wonder. Then she stood, steadier now, and gave a deep bow, her silver hair falling over her face. "You'll be remembered," she said softly. Before Eli could ask what she meant, a low rumble echoed across the valley. He turned to see a bright line streaking through the sky, a massive ship breaking through the clouds. Its silhouette glowed against the sunset, enormous and silent. The girl's eyes widened in alarm. "They found me," she whispered. "Who?" Eli asked, but she was already backing away. "You must go. Please, forget you saw me." Eli took a step forward. "Wait, I can help." She raised a hand, and for the first time, he saw the faint glow of power in her palm, energy pulsing like lightning. "No, you can't." Before he could speak again, she turned and ran into the misty hills, leaving only footprints and a faint shimmer of light in the dust. Eli stood there for a long time, barefoot, watching the sky. The ship above moved slowly, scanning the land with beams of blue light. Whoever she was clearly important and in danger. He sighed and looked down at his feet. The road felt cold now. "Guess I just made a weird kind of friend," he muttered. Then from far away, the sky roared again, the sound of engines rising, dozens of them. He looked up, frowning. This time, the ships were moving in formation, toward him. He didn't know it yet, but that small act of kindness, giving away his shoes, had just changed the fate of two worlds. And tomorrow, when the suns rose again, the Armada would bow. The morning came quietly. The twin suns rose over the hills, their light spreading across the dusty valley. The air was cool and still, almost peaceful. Eli Walker sat near the remains of an old cargo pod, trying to make a small fire with scraps of metal and a spark tool. His feet were sore and covered with dust, but he didn't care much. He kept thinking about the strange girl he'd met last night, her glowing eyes, her soft voice, and the fear in her face when the ship appeared. He had seen many strange things on alien worlds, but never something like her. She didn't seem dangerous. If anything, she seemed lost. He sighed, poking the fire until it caught. "Hope she's okay," he muttered to himself. But even as he said the words, the ground beneath him began to tremble. The vibration was faint at first, like thunder rolling from far away. Then it grew stronger. Eli stood and looked toward the sky. His eyes widened. Dark shapes were descending from the clouds. Dozens of ships, sleek and enormous, flying in perfect formation. The morning light reflected off their silver hulls as they spread out above the valley. The hum of their engines filled the air, deep and powerful, making the dust on the ground dance. Eli's heart began to race. "Oh no," he whispered. He had seen warships before, but never this many and never this close. He grabbed his pack and started to move toward the rocks for cover, but a beam of blue light suddenly scanned the ground around him. It swept over him, bright and humming, and then stopped, right on him. Eli froze. The light pulsed once, and then a soft, echoing voice filled the air. Human life form detected. He swallowed hard. "Yeah, that's me," he muttered, "just passing through." The ships moved closer. One of them, much larger than the rest, began to descend. Its engines thundered as it landed nearby, blowing dust and wind in all directions. The air shimmered with heat from its thrusters. Eli shielded his eyes as the ship's ramp lowered. The sound of metal on stone echoed across the valley. Out of the mist stepped a squad of alien soldiers, tall, armored beings with glowing blue markings on their suits. Their faces were hidden behind silver masks that reflected the sunlight. Each one carried a long weapon that hummed softly with energy. Eli raised his hand slowly. Okay, let's not do anything crazy," he said carefully. "I'm unarmed." The soldiers spread out, forming a circle around him. Then one of them stepped forward. He was taller than the rest, wearing dark silver armor with golden lines running across it. Clearly a commander. His voice was calm but firm. "You are the human named Eli Walker?" Eli hesitated. "Yeah, who's asking?" The commander studied him for a long moment. Then he turned slightly and spoke in his own language, a mix of musical tones and deep vibrations. A small drone floated down from the ship and projected a hologram in front of Eli. It was her, the girl from last night. Her image flickered in the air, showing her face, her silver hair, her bright eyes. Eli blinked. "That's her, yeah. She was in trouble. I helped her." The commander's eyes glowed faintly behind his visor. "You helped her?" "I gave her my shoes," Eli said simply, unsure why that even mattered. "She was barefoot. Hurt. That's all." The commander took a step back and spoke again to his soldiers. They all froze for a moment, then, to Eli's shock, bowed. Every single one of them lowered their heads and dropped to one knee. Eli blinked. What's happening?" The commander removed his mask. Beneath it was a pale, sharp face with glowing blue eyes that shimmered with respect. "You have shown honor," the commander said softly. "You helped our high princess, when none of you else could find her." Eli's mouth fell open. "Princess? You mean that girl?" "She is the heir of the Corellian Empire," the commander said. "She was lost during an attack. We feared she was dead." He paused, his voice lowering. "You gave her what none of us could, compassion." Eli tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. I didn't know. I just saw someone who needed help. The commander looked at him for a moment longer, then spoke to his soldiers again. Instantly, the sound of engines filled the air as the other ships above began to shift their positions. The entire Armada, hundreds of ships, turned in perfect formation. Slowly, they tilted downward, lowering their front ends toward the ground. Eli watched in disbelief. The ships were bowing. The commander bowed deeply before him. In the name of the princess and the Corellian throne, he said, "We honor you, human Eli Walker. You are now a friend of the Empire." Eli stood frozen, unable to move or even breathe. The sight was overwhelming. The endless sky filled with massive ships, all lowered in respect to him. "I just gave her shoes," he whispered. The commander smiled faintly. "Sometimes," he said, "a small act carries the weight of stars." The sound of the engines faded as the ships held their position in the air. The sunlight glinted off their metallic hulls like 1,000 mirrors. For the first time since arriving on this planet, Eli didn't feel like an outsider. He felt like something had changed, not just for him, but for both their worlds. And somewhere, far beyond the horizon, the young princess watched from her ship, wearing his old boots, a quiet smile on her face. The air was thick with dust and silence. Eli Walker stood among the alien soldiers, still barefoot, still trying to understand what just happened. Hundreds of ships floated above the valley, motionless and glowing like stars frozen in daylight. Every soldier around him knelt, heads bowed low. He never imagined that giving away his shoes would cause something like this. The commander approached again and bowed slightly. "The princess wishes to see you," he said. Eli blinked. "She's here. She arrived a moment ago." The commander motioned toward a smaller, silver ship landing nearby. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal as the ramp slowly descended. From inside, a figure stepped out, graceful, tall, and glowing faintly in the morning light. The alien girl from yesterday. She was clean now, her robe repaired, her silver hair flowing freely. On her feet were his old, battered boots. When she saw him, her glowing eyes softened. "Eli," she whispered, her voice warm but trembling. He smiled awkwardly. "Guess you made it home, huh?" She walked toward him, ignoring the watching soldiers. When she reached him, she bowed deeply, something no one expected. The commander gasped. The entire army lowered their heads again in response. Eli's face turned red. Hey, you don't have to do that," he said quickly. "I just gave you shoes." She lifted her head, and for a moment, he could see the emotion behind her calm face. Gratitude, guilt, and something deeper. "You gave more than shoes," she said softly. "You gave me mercy, something my people have forgotten." Eli frowned. "What do you mean?" She turned and looked toward the mountains. "My name is Princess Elira of Kirill. Yesterday, I ran away from my ship to escape an order I couldn't follow." Eli folded his arms. "An order?" She nodded. "My council wanted me to sign a decree to destroy a human colony that stood in the way of a new mining route." Eli's jaw tightened. "Destroy a colony? There were civilians there." "Yes," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "That's why I refused. I fled before they could force me. But I got lost. My guards were killed. I was alone for the first time in my life." She looked down at the boots. "And then I met you." The wind picked up, carrying the hum of distant ships. The commander stood nearby, silent, his eyes downcast. Even he seemed surprised by her confession. Elira continued, "You didn't ask who I was. You didn't demand anything. You saw me not as a princess, but as a person." Eli stared at her for a long moment, unsure what to say. "I just did what anyone should do," he said quietly. She smiled sadly. "No, my people have power, wealth, technology beyond your kind's imagination, but we have lost something simple. Kindness. You reminded me what it means to care without reason." The commander finally spoke. "Your Highness, the council will not accept your refusal. They have already sent envoys. They will come soon." Elira nodded slowly. "Then they will face me and him." She turned to Eli. "If you'll stand with me." Eli blinked. Me? I'm not part of your empire. You are now, she said softly. You are the only one they might listen to. The man who gave the princess his shoes. The act is spread across every ship in the fleet. To them, you are a symbol now. Eli rubbed the back of his neck, uneasy. I'm just a guy trying to stay alive. I'm no diplomat. Aelira smiled faintly. Sometimes the smallest people start the biggest changes. He looked into her glowing green eyes, saw the determination there, and the fear she was trying to hide. He sighed. All right, if it helps stop a war, I'll stand with you. She bowed her head slightly. Then I am in your debt once more. Before Eli could respond, alarms began to echo from the ships above. The commander pressed a button on his wristband, and a holographic screen appeared, red symbols flashing rapidly. Enemy fleet approaching, he said sharply. It's the Council's guard. Aelira's expression hardened. They came faster than I thought. Eli turned toward the horizon. Black shapes were forming in the distance, ships much larger than before, moving fast. The air vibrated as thunder rolled through the clouds. Looks like diplomacy's going to be loud, Eli muttered. The princess smiled slightly. Then we'll make them listen. The commander barked orders, and soldiers moved quickly, forming defensive lines around the valley. Drones lifted into the sky, and the hum of energy weapons filled the air. Aelira stepped forward, her hand glowing with faint light. Eli, stay close. If they capture me, they'll execute you too. Comforting, he said dryly. You know, I liked it better when all I had to do was walk. She gave him a soft look, half a smile, half sadness. I like that too. The sky darkened as the enemy ships approached, their engines roaring like thunder gods. Beams of blue light cut across the clouds, and the ground trembled beneath their power. The first battle of Kira was about to begin, not between enemies, but between two sides of the same people. And at the center stood a barefoot human, and the princess who wore his shoes, both about to change history. The sky above Kirill burned with color and motion. Dozens of warships glided through the clouds, their engines glowing with angry red light. The Council's fleet had arrived. Eli Walker stood beside Princess Aelira, staring up at the massive ships. They looked like flying cities, sleek, black, and deadly. Their arrival filled the air with thunder and fear. They're here to take me, Aelira said quietly, her voice calm but her hands trembling. The commander beside them, Captain Vorn, spoke firmly. Your Highness, our ships are ready to defend you, but the Council fleet is larger. If they fire first, we will lose many. Aelira looked toward the horizon, her glowing eyes reflecting the light of the oncoming ships. They will not listen to reason, she said. They see compassion as weakness. Eli sighed. Sounds familiar. We've had leaders like that too. The wind whipped across the valley as Vorn barked orders to his soldiers. Massive anti-air cannons unfolded from the ground, humming with blue light. Drones rose into the sky, forming a shield above the valley. Aelira stepped forward, lifting her pendant from around her neck. It shimmered like a star in her hand. If they won't listen, she whispered, I'll make them see. Eli frowned. What's that thing, anyway? It's called the Heart of Kirill, she said softly. It connects to every ship in the Empire, a relic of our founders. Only the royal bloodline can use it. And what happens when you do? He asked, her voice lowered. It forces truth into the mind of every Corellian who hears it, but it also drains the one who uses it. Eli frowned. Drains? As in kills? She looked away. If I use too much energy, yes. He stared at her, disbelief in his voice. So you're planning to die just to stop them? Aelira looked back at him, her green eyes steady. If I must, Mercy must live, even if I don't. Before Eli could answer, a massive hologram appeared above the battlefield. The face of Counselor Varric, the head of the Corellian Council. His features were sharp, his expression cold. Princess Aelira, the hologram thundered, you have defied your people, abandoned your duty, and consorted with an alien. His gaze shifted toward Eli. A human, a lesser being. Eli raised an eyebrow. Nice to meet you, too. Varric's expression twisted in disgust. You disgrace our bloodline. Surrender now, and the council will show leniency. Lyra stepped forward. Leniency? You ordered me to destroy innocent lives. You call murder law and cruelty justice. Varric's voice grew harsh. Compassion weakens the Empire. You have brought shame upon your throne. Lyra's pen began to glow brighter in her hand. If mercy is weakness, she said, then I will be the weakest ruler you ever feared. The hologram flickered, and Varric shouted something in his native tongue. Instantly, beams of red energy shot down from the council ships, striking the ground near the valley. Explosions lit up the sky. Take cover, Vorn shouted. Eli grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her behind a rock as fire rained down from above. The air burned with heat and smoke. Soldiers scrambled to return fire. Drones shot up into the sky, unleashing blue bursts of plasma. The sound was deafening. Lyra looked toward the burning horizon, her eyes filled with pain. I didn't want this, she whispered. Eli turned to her. Then stop it, but don't die for it. She held the pendant close to her chest. If I don't do this, thousands will die anyway. Before he could stop her, she stood up and walked into the open. The glowing pendant rose into the air, floating above her palm. Blue energy swirled around her like wind. Lyra, Eli shouted, but it was too late. Her hair lifted as light poured from her skin. The pendant's glow became blinding. Every ship in the sky froze, their engines flickering. Then her voice echoed across the planet, not just sound, but something deeper, something that entered every mind. Stop this war. Remember who we are. We were born from the stars, not to destroy, but to protect. The soldiers on both sides hesitated. Many fell to their knees, eyes wide as the truth reached their hearts. Lyra's voice continued, trembling with power. If you still call me your princess, then listen. Mercy is not weakness. It is strength beyond fear. The light around her grew stronger. Eli ran to her side, shouting through blinding glow. That's enough. You're burning yourself out. Her eyes glowed like fire. I have to finish it. The pendant pulsed one last time. A wave of light spread across the sky, washing over every ship. When it faded, silence fell. The council fleet stopped firing. Their ships hovered motionless, weapons offline. Then, one by one, their lights turned from red to blue, the symbol of surrender. The battle was over. Lyra collapsed into Eli's arms, weak and trembling. Her skin was pale, her breathing shallow. Eli held her tight. Hey, stay with me, he said softly. You did it. She smiled faintly, her voice barely a whisper. You gave me your shoes. I gave you peace. He looked down at her, the brave, barefoot girl who had become a symbol of hope, and felt something deep inside him change. The Armada above began to bow once more, their engines humming in quiet respect. But Eli didn't care about the ships. All he cared about was keeping her alive. Silence ruled the battlefield. Smoke drifted across the valley where war had ended only hours ago. Ships that once burned with red fire now floated quietly above, their lights glowing blue in surrender. At the center of it all, Eli Walker sat beside Princess Lyra, who lay unconscious on a stretcher. Her skin was pale, her breathing soft but steady. Eli brushed a lock of silver hair from her face. You saved them all, he whispered. Now you just have to save yourself. Captain Vorn approached, armor cracked and covered in dust. The fleets have stood down, he said. The council ships are requesting orders. Orders? Eli asked. From who? From her, Vorn said, nodding toward Lyra. They still see her as their true ruler. Eli glanced at her, fragile yet powerful, and sighed. She's not ready to command anyone right now. Get her to safety. They carried her into Medical Bay, inside one of the smaller ships. The room glowed with soft blue light, machines humming quietly as alien doctors worked to stabilize her. When they were done, one of them turned to Eli. Her life force is weakened, the doctor said. She must rest. The heart of Kirill took much from her. Eli nodded. Then she rests. He sat beside her bed for hours, watching the stars drift by through the window. Each ship that passed seemed to lower its lights in respect. A silent bow to the princess who had ended a war with words, not weapons. But far away, hidden behind the calm of the fleet, a shadow was moving. On the command deck of one of the remaining council ships, a tall figure stood by the viewing window. His name was Admiral Sareth Varric, the son of the very counselor Illyra had defied. His cold, golden eyes stared at the blue lights of surrender with disgust. "My father was right," he said quietly. "Mercy weakens us." A voice behind him spoke, a woman dressed in black armor. "What do you wish to do, Admiral?" Sareth turned slowly. "The princess has betrayed our empire, and this human has poisoned her mind. But while the fleet bows, I will strike." He smiled thinly. "They will think the war is over, until they see what true strength means." He raised his wrist communicator. "Prepare the obsidian spear." No survivors. Back in the medical bay, Illyra stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly green. The first thing she saw was Eli sleeping in a chair beside her, head resting against his arm. "Eli," she whispered weakly. He opened his eyes instantly. "Hey," he said softly, smiling with relief. "Welcome back, Barefoot Princess." She smiled faintly. "You stayed?" He chuckled. "You almost fried your soul to stop a war." "Of course I stayed." Illyra looked around, confusion in her eyes. "The council, the ships?" "They surrendered," Eli said. "You did it." Her lips trembled slightly. "I heard them, all of them, crying, afraid, confused. It was so loud inside my mind." Eli leaned closer. "You don't have to carry that alone." Before she could answer, the lights flickered. The ship trembled. "What was that?" Eli said, standing up. Vorn's voice came over the intercom, sharp and urgent. "Captain to all units. Unidentified energy signature approaching. Everyone to battle stations." Eli looked out the window and froze. A single black warship was descending to the clouds, larger, darker, and more heavily armed than anything he had seen before. It looked like a blade of night cutting through the stars. "The obsidian spear," Illyra whispered in horror. "That ship was built to destroy planets." Eli frowned. "You're kidding." She shook her head weakly. "No, it was a secret project of the Council, meant for conquest, not defense. My father once swore it would never be used." "Guess his son didn't get the memo," Eli muttered. Vorn's voice returned. "They're charging a singularity cannon. If it fires, everything within 50 kilometers will vanish." Eli grabbed his gear. "Then we stop them first." Illyra tried to rise, but stumbled. "I can help." He caught her gently. "No, you just came back from the dead." She looked at him, determination blazing in her eyes. "Then let me live like someone who earned it." Minutes later, the royal frigate rose into the sky, heading straight for the obsidian spear. The air burned with light as both ships exchanged fire. Blue plasma bolts streaked across the heavens, colliding with the spear's dark shields. The sound of energy bursts echoed through space like thunder. Inside the cockpit, Illyra took control of the command console. Her hands glowed as she interfaced directly with the ship's core. "Target their power coils," she ordered. "If we disable them, they can't fire." Eli manned the secondary turret, firing rapidly. On it, the enemy ship responded with a massive energy pulse, a wave of dark red light that ripped through the atmosphere. The frigate shook violently. Sparks flew everywhere. Shields down to 30%. Vorn shouted. Illyra gritted her teeth. "We can't take another hit like that." Eli shouted. "Then we hit them harder." Illyra glanced at him, and then smiled faintly. "Human stubbornness," she whispered. "I like it." She extended her hand toward the heart of Kiro pendant, still faintly glowing around her neck. "One last surge," she said, "for all of us." Eli saw what she was doing, and his heart froze. "No, Illyra, you'll—" But before he could finish, light burst from her body once again, flooding the cockpit with blinding blue fire. Outside, the obsidian spear's dark armor began to crack, the power inside it trembling against her will. The sky turned white. When the light faded, the massive ship was gone. Only drifting shards remained, glowing softly in the dawn. The battle was over, but the cost once again was unknown. A Lyra collapsed in the pilot's seat, motionless. Eli caught her, shouting her name. Her faint voice whispered back, "It's not over. Someone else was controlling them." Then her eyes closed, and the stars outside flickered, as if something unseen was watching from beyond. Smoke drifted slowly through the dawn sky. The wreckage of the obsidian spear still glowed faintly, pieces burning as they fell into the ocean below. Inside the royal frigate, silence ruled. Eli knelt beside Lyra, whose breathing was shallow but steady. He had carried her from the cockpit with his own hands, refusing to let anyone else touch her. "She'll live," the medic said softly, "but her body is drained. That power she used, it nearly erased her." Eli nodded, gripping her hand. "She saved us all again." Captain Vorn entered, limping from burns on his leg. "The fleet is safe. The Council ships have fled beyond the asteroid belt." Eli looked up. "All of them?" Vorn hesitated. "No, one didn't run. It's broadcasting an encrypted signal. And it's human." Eli froze. "Human?" "Yes. Registry ID from Earth's old defense command." The words hit Eli like a hammer. Earth's fleet had gone silent almost a century ago. Humanity had pulled back, letting the galaxies believe they'd vanished after the old wars. He frowned. "Patch it through?" A moment later, the holoscreen flickered on. The image of a man appeared, tall, silver-haired, and dressed in an old Earth military uniform. His eyes were sharp, cold, and familiar. "Captain Eli Walker," the man said calmly. "I'm glad to see you alive." Eli's jaw tightened. "General Kane." Vorn looked between them. "You know him?" Eli nodded slowly. "He was my commander before the program ended." Kane smiled slightly. "You always were one of the good ones. Walker, pity you've forgotten what humanity stands for." Eli's eyes narrowed. "You sent the obsidian spear, didn't you?" Kane tilted his head. "The Council thought they controlled it. They were wrong. It was always ours. The Council, the Princess, the aliens, all distractions. We only wanted one thing." A faint pulse glowed behind him. A data core, the heart of Kirill. Eli felt his stomach drop. "You were tracking her?" "Since she first made contact with you," Kane replied. "That relic she carries is not just alien. It's ancient, older than both our species. It bends energy, reshapes matter. It's the key to controlling worlds. And she used it like a toy." Eli's voice turned cold. "You killed thousands trying to steal it." Kane shrugged. "Collateral damage. Humanity must acclaim its throne among the stars." Lyra's weak voice came from behind. "You speak of thrones while standing on ashes." Kane's expression hardened. "You should rest, Princess. Soon you'll give me what's mine." The screen cut out. Vorn slammed his fist on the console. "We have to hunt him down before he reaches the jump gate." Eli looked at Lyra. "Can you sense him?" She closed her eyes, the faint light of the heart flickering at her neck. "Yes, his ship burns with stolen power. He's heading for the rift of Varyon." "The rift?" Vorn repeated. "That place eats ships alive." Eli straightened. "Then we chase him before he uses it." Lyra touched his arm. "If you go, you may not return." He smiled faintly. "You said that last time." She looked into his eyes, tired, afraid, but full of trust. "Then let me go with you." Hours later, the royal frigate raced toward the rift, a swirling storm of light and gravity that tore at the edge of space. Lightning crackled across its horizon like claws. Inside the cockpit, the crew worked in silence. The only sound was the hum of engines and the beating of hearts. Lyra sat beside Eli, her hands resting on the console. "He's here," she said quietly. "I can feel him inside the storm." Eli tightened his harness. "Then we end here." Suddenly, the view ahead shifted. A massive ship appeared from the vortex, black and angular, powered by stolen energy from the heart. Kane's voice echoed through comms. "You can't stop what's coming, Walker. Humanity's rebirth begins today." The royal frigate shuddered as the enemy fired a plasma beam. The hull groaned, alarms blaring. "Shields at 60%. Vorn shouted, Return fire. Eli barked. Blue bolts streaked through space, striking Kane's ship, but the dark hull barely flinched. Its armor seemed to absorb energy. A Lyra gritted her teeth. He's channeling the heart's resonance. He's using it like a weapon. Eli turned to her. Can you disrupt it? She nodded weakly. If I link with it, maybe. Her lips curved in a faint smile. You're not the only one allowed to take risks, human. Before he could stop her, she closed her eyes and placed her hand on the heart. Light burst from her chest, spreading across the cockpit in waves of blue. Outside, Kane's ship wavered, its shield patterns flickering. He shouted through the comms, "No, you can't." A Lyra's voice echoed, calm but powerful. You took what was never yours. Now face the balance. The two ships locked in a storm of energy, light and darkness, colliding in the rift's twisting gravity. Eli fought to keep control as consoles exploded around him. A Lyra, that's enough. You'll burn out. She smiled faintly. Then at least I'll burn for something that matters. The rift began to collapse, sucking both ships toward it hard. Vorn yelled, "We can't hold position." Eli turned to a Lyra, eyes full of desperation. "We're not dying here." She looked back, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. "Then hold on to me." She reached out, and in an instant, the world shattered into light. When Eli opened his eyes, everything was silent. The rift was gone. Kane's ship had vanished, and they were drifting in a calm field of stars, far from any known sector. A Lyra lay unconscious beside him again, but alive. Eli leaned back, exhausted, whispering, "You really don't know when to stop saving people, do you?" Outside the window, the stars flickered once more, not random, but forming patterns. Ancient human patterns. Something out there was still watching. And for the first time, Eli realized the war wasn't between humans and aliens anymore. It was between humanity itself. The stars were silent. The royal frigate drifted through the endless black, lights dimmed, engines quiet. The crew was exhausted, but alive. Eli sat beside a Lyra, who was still resting in the med bay. Her face looked peaceful, glowing faintly under the soft blue lights. The heart of Kirill pulsed weakly at her neck, like it was sleeping too. He reached out, brushing a strand of silver hair from her forehead. "You did it again," he whispered. "You saved everyone." Her eyes fluttered open. "Not everyone," she said softly. Kane escaped. Eli froze. "What?" She nodded weakly. "The heart showed me, fragments of time. He survived, and he's heading for the origin." Eli frowned. "Origin?" "The place where the heart was born," she said. "Where everything began." Hours later, the royal frigate turns bow toward a distant star system, one uncharted and forbidden even by ancient maps. As they neared, a massive structure came into view, a planet-sized ring of stone and metal, half buried in cosmic dust, glowing faintly with ancient symbols. "The origin," Alira whispered. "It's not a planet. It's a machine." Vorn leaned forward. "Then Kane's going there to activate it." Eli clenched his jaw. "And we're going there to stop him." The frigate descended into the ring's broken surface. The air shimmered with static energy, the ruins of forgotten technology humming like whispers. At the heart of it all stood General Kane, waiting beside a massive crystal altar, the twin of Alira's heart. He turned slowly as they approached, his armor cracked but his eyes blazing with purpose. "You shouldn't have come, Walker." Eli stepped forward. "You've done enough damage, Kane. It's over." Kane smiled. "Over? It's only beginning. Look around you. This place isn't alien. It's human." Alira's eyes widened. "That's not possible." Kane gestured to the carvings on the walls. "Ancient human symbols, older than recorded history. We didn't come from Earth, Walker. Earth was the refuge. Humanity started here, alongside the creations." He pointed at Alira. "Her people." Eli's voice was low. "You're lying." "Am I?" Kane asked. "The heart is proof. It was made to unite us, to balance two halves of one species. But the aliens forgot, and humans turned away. I will awaken it again." Humanity will rule as it was meant to. Aelira's eyes filled with tears. Rule or destroy? Cain raised his hand, and the ancient altar began to glow. Sometimes they're the same thing. The ground shook. Energy pulsed through the ruins, crackling up into the dark sky. The twin hearts resonated, Aelira's pendant glowing brighter in answer to Cain's crystal. "Stop it," Eli shouted, raising his weapon. Cain laughed. "You think bullets can stop destiny?" The air exploded with light. Aelira staggered, clutching her chest as her heart blazed with power. "He's pulling it from me," she gasped. "He's trying to fuse them." Eli caught her, shouting over the roar. "Then we fight it together." She looked into his eyes, trembling. "If the hearts merge, only one will survive." He gritted his teeth. "Then we make sure it's you." She shook her head. "No, Eli. It has to be both of us. Human and alien together." Her hands glowed as she stepped forward, facing Cain. The two hearts pulsed in rhythm, light and shadow intertwining. Cain snarled, "You don't understand. The heart belongs to humanity." Eli's voice echoed across the ruins. "Then maybe humanity needs to remember how to share." Aelira reached her hand toward Cain's crystal. "Balance, not power," she shouted. The light engulfed them all. In that moment, Eli saw flashes, ancient memories, thousands of years old, humans and aliens building together, laughing, learning, exploring. They were one people once, until greed tore them apart. He saw Cain younger, watching the fall, his heart twisted by loss. He saw Aelira's ancestors guarding what was left, waiting for the day someone worthy would bring unity again. And then Eli saw himself, a man who had once given away his shoes to a stranger. A simple act of kindness that had started it all. The light burned brighter and then vanished. When the smoke cleared, Cain was gone. The altar had crumbled into dust. Aelira knelt beside Eli, her hand on his cheek. "You're alive," she whispered. He smiled weakly. "Yeah, mostly." She looked at the heart, now fused into a single crystal on her chest, glowing softly, peacefully. "It's over," she said. "The hearts became one, and they chose us." Eli looked at the horizon, where dawn was breaking over the ruins. "So what happens now?" Aelira smiled. "Now we rebuild." Days later, the fleets of both humans and aliens met in orbit, not as enemies, but as equals. The royal frigate hovered between them, its hull bearing a new symbol, a human hand and an alien star intertwined. Admiral Vorn stood beside Eli and Aelira on the command deck. "They're waiting for your words," he said quietly. Eli looked out the window, voice calm but firm. "No more kings, no more empires, just people learning to walk together again." Aelira placed her hand in his. "And maybe this time," she said softly, "they'll walk with shoes." They both laughed, the sound echoing through the stars. As the fleets bowed in unison, human and alien ships lowering their lights in salute, the heart of Kirill pulsed once more. Its glow reached beyond the stars, whispering through time. One small act of kindness can change the fate of worlds. And far across the galaxy, ancient systems stirred, sensing the balance restored, for now, because stories never truly end. They only wait for the next heart willing to care.